Hi and welcome back to the Red Car Learning Path. This is the fifth video in Tableau Introduction with Field Monitoring Data. Again, my name is Neil Bolger and we are going to dive back into Tableau Prep and look at how to work with timestamps and think about normalizing data to be on a common timestamp. So in Tableau, I've already imported a text file here and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep these like two files working. I think it's good to visually see two for now. So each one of these has time. If we just add a clean step, we can actually look at the data a little bit better so we can understand what's going on here. So each one of these, if you hover over it, it'll tell you, well, actually, this is kind of summing it up in these bar graphs. You actually need to look at the raw data to really see what's down here. So here we can see the data actually is very granular, right? It has something down to the seconds. And so in Tableau, it's often that we need to, for this data, we're going to average this data to be at the 1 minute. We're going to get rid of the seconds data. And we're going to do that because we have some other data here that also is at 1 minute, but is at a slightly different seconds. It's at like 59 seconds, I think. And so to do that, I do have this kind of text file of common commands, but I think this might be visually the right place to start. So in Tableau, there's lots of little equations we can do, and we're going to play with some called, it's kind of like typing in Excel, like simple equations in Excel, like sum, if, then this, and they have these ones specifically to time and dates called make date time, and then sub equations called make date and make time. And each one of these works by having three different arguments it's passed. So make time takes hours, minutes, and seconds. Make date takes year, month, day. And then this make date time takes both of those, separated by a comma. So that's what we're going to do today. We're basically going to do this formula, and I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. We have some other ones in here that are useful as well, and we'll use in the future. But to do this, I have found that it's the easiest way for me to not get confused is to first take time apart and then put it back together. And so what I mean by that is I recommend creating fields for each thing for year, and that, oh yeah, this is a command I didn't type down, but so we're going to pull the year out of the date time. So there's a command called date part where you then actually type the word year between single quotes, and you can then point it to date time, and it will know, because date time is a timestamp, what to look for. It will find the year. So here we can see it found the span of time that we're looking for. I'm going to do the same command for month. So date part, month, in small quotes, the variable itself, date time. I hit tab after it found the variable name I wanted. I'll pause a little more when I do the next one on day. So if we do day, let's do date part, and I hit tab to just create the quote. So that way I didn't have to type the open quote. And then I'm going to do day, and then I'm going to do date time. So I found date time. It said, oh, I found it's the top one in this list of potential things you are typing. And that way, and I can use the arrow key if I want to pick a different thing in this list, but the top one is correct. So I just keep it there, hit tab, and it selects it. So I made day, and then we're going to make hour, date, part, hour, date, part. Sorry about this. We'll do it quickly. Minute, date time. Okay. I think that should do it. So I didn't make one for seconds because that's what we're trying to get rid of. And normal. All right. So with that, I now have all my components of time. And so now we can actually, oh yeah. And so in Tableau, what we're doing here as we're adding these equations, Tableau is keeping track of our changes. And so if you ever want to go back and change a step, you have to expand with this little caret, and it will show you the changes you've made. in chronological order from when you made them. You can actually reorder them if you would like. In this case, what we're doing isn't really significant. We could have done minutes after year. But you can see here by clicking back on a change, it actually grays out these other ones, and now those changes have not been made yet. So this is how you basically undo inside Tableau Prep. And you also have to go back here to modify it. You would click the pencil if you wanted to modify that formula. You actually couldn't right click on it and edit. You might be able to, but anyways, it's best to go back here and use the pencil. So that's just the log of changes. Okay, so we took time apart. Let's now put time back together. So we're going to make this formula. We're going to call this date, time. I'm going to call it new, which is sometimes dangerous. And what did I do? So, okay, how did I do that? I said create calculated field. That's how I did this. So date, time, new. And now I'm going to type these formulas we saw before. I'm going to say make date time. And this will make the whole thing. And so now I'm going to type another one, make date. And inside here, I'm now going to link it to year, the variable we made, month, day. So we just made those three variables. I'm going to step over a space, add a comma. And I'm actually going to hit return just to keep it here so I can see it all in one space. And Tableau Prep is pretty easy in terms of a coding language. It doesn't care if you do returns as long as you have the commas in the right spot and the semicolons and things. And then we're going to do make time. So we're going to do hour, comma, minute. And now I'm going to do comma, and I'm just going to say 0, 0. So I'm basically going to say I'm going to say there are no seconds in our data. Every minute is the same. Or every second is the same. So that's our new date time. So oftentimes what I will even do is type create time new. And then here, I'll add another step. With this, I now actually am just going to highlight all these and remove the fields I don't need. So I've deleted all the old instances we didn't need. We just have our new version of time. You could have done that in the same step, but I like to keep them separate just to go back and troubleshoot. So that's great, right? We now have a new time. It's very clean. It's all in, there's no seconds, but there is a risk. So there's a risk that we had a second that exactly overlapped, and we would now, if we exported, get a double instance of one of the minutes. That can occur depending on how the data was pulled in. So, you can do lots of things. You could take that risk and export the data. That's fine. You can already see here. Oh yeah, we can see here. So that's already happening here because these were on different seconds. So even though these now look the same, Tableau still considers these row entries to be unique. So we want to fix that, right? We want these to be on the same 11:18. So to do that, we're actually going to do an aggregate step. And so real quickly, when we add aggregate, I'm just going to hit this add all as a demonstration. It's probably the best way to do this if you're new to Tableau Prep. And so what it did is it found that this is probably the field we want to group with, and these are the fields we probably want to group in some way or another. By default, it will pick summing up the data, which is really annoying in the work we do because oftentimes we do not want to sum the data. It's probably best to do the average of the data. It will also create number of rows, which is not really a helpful field in any way. So I would often remove this and just leave it on the left. And so what we're going to do here is we're actually going to change these instead of sum to be average. And we're going to do that by clicking on the word at the top. Another way you can do this if you have lots and lots and lots of data is to actually over here on the left, click the word sum for each one and select average. And that I have found is honestly the fastest way. If you have 30 or more things, I would recommend clicking each one and doing average and not adding all of them first because adding all first can take a lot of RAM and time. Okay, so that now is aggregating our data. It's averaging all the data it finds on every single minute. And now if we do another output step, we can see here we have now succeeded, even though this is showing our sample data not in chronological order. That is not an issue yet, or the data is fine. But just to say, you can now see here, it has averaged all our entries. So they're on the same row, which is great. If we were to do, as an example, if we wanted to do those same steps here for this makeup unit, we actually could highlight these steps, copy them with the keyboard and paste them, and then drag this plus to the end of this set here, and it will now, because I knew that the names of the fields were the same, that time date was also in this file, it should pick up all our formulas and do the exact same manipulations that we did to the other file. So now I'm actually going to add, let's do this, let's add a union first. We'll join this data set together. We'll delete our aggregation step, and now we'll add a new aggregation step where we can now add each one of these. We'll drag time over. There we go. So now, if we were to look at our cleaning, we can now see that these three things are on the same timestamp. So we've now basically combined two different CSV files, both gone through a process. We probably could have combined them first, but for this, we did them in this order. And now we can add an output step. We can, for this, just save it as a CSV again. We'll call this output sample 2. I'm going to go back to my file. I'm actually going to call it demo to output. And I'll accept, and then I'll play, and that will create the data set here for us. All right, and that took 5 seconds. And now if we were to look at that data in, if we were to open that in this tab, we can see, here we can see the results of, oh no, this is the raw data, it's still opening. Here we can see what it opened. We now have every timestamp. We can see time is a bit disorganized here, but if we wanted to see it chronologically, we could just quickly filter and then sort by oldest to newest. There we go. And now we can see in a normalized, here we go, time is normal, and we can now have these data referenced across each other. So that's the basic intro to taking time apart in Tableau. Things we didn't cover that we'll talk about in the future. There are additional ways we may want to look at time and days. A common one here for synchronizing is to, we'll talk about in the future, is to make combine data into average 15 minutes or 1 hour. So to do that, we actually can write this, this is a 5-minute process here. So if we were to average data to 5 minutes, the way we would do that is to actually look, we would take time apart like we did, and then make a new equation that's called minute 5, where we actually use these if-else commands and say if it's between 0 and 5, then we'll call it the 0 minute. If it's between 10 and 5, we'll call it the 5 minute, and so on. And so this is one way to then make a new data field called minute 5. And you could do the same process for 15 minutes. And we would do this before this aggregation step, and that would then create the new normal timestamp. And the average or the max or the sum would take care of all the data that occurred on the set of 5 minutes. So if we had a lot of data, one every minute, it would combine all 5 of those and make one output. And you can kind of see here, this is how that new equation would look. Very similar to our last one. It's just now we're replacing this make time with our minute 5 variable. So those are some tips and tricks we have used to normalize time using Tableau. All right, I'll talk to you in the next video. Thanks.